depending on where you are, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar on low carbon hydrogen. Before we start, I would like to read the following disclaimer. This is for protection of everyone. So I'll say it in English first. So unless stated otherwise, the statements and opinions expressed herein are solely each panelist's own and do not represent the views of their employers. I'll say it in French now. Sauf indication contraire, les déclarations et opinions exprimées ici sont uniquement celles de chaque panéliste et ne représentent pas les vues de leurs employeurs. Thank you, merci. Now we can start. So, my name is Khalid Mamour. I'm responsible for the MEA region, Middle East and Africa, and drive the hydrogen initiative in Europe for an energy services company called Shawcor. Our interest on the hydrogen side is in transport and storage. I would like to thank the panel for making themselves available and accepting to contribute to this event. I would like to thank Adel Baba Isa of A&E Partners and Ahmed Lawaj of ABC for their tireless support to make this happen. So ABC, a couple of words about it. Algerian Business Club are the organizers of this event. It is, as its name states, a club, so a non-profit organization, helping the Algerian diaspora to connect to their country of origin and potentially invest in the country. It does so through knowledge sharing, offering support and guidance to investors and project owners, and act as a bridge between Algerians in Algeria and outside. Now, we will follow this webinar with more webinars in the future, in the coming months, and we will be welcoming suggestions as to contents. Okay. A quick set of housekeeping rules that we're transgressing already. So for the panel, please make sure your phones are on silent or off. Thank you. Please mind the time allocated to you. And for the participants or audience, please keep your microphone on mute and use the raise your hand button to speak, but only when we are at the Q&A session, or send your questions through the chat. So, starting. Hydrogen. The recurring statements we hear are the most abundant element in the universe, a major contributor to decarbonization, minimum to no CO2 emission. Governments, institutions, businesses are discussing and making plans about it. Projects are popping up everywhere. Very exciting. So we thought we would discuss that today and try and shed some light and learn about the topic from each other. To do this, I'm pleased to say that we have a very good panel with balanced and varied experience. Before I go and introduce the whole panel, which I prefer to do when we get to the panel discussion, I would like to let everyone know that we will have 3 short presentations, maximum of 10 minutes each, followed by a panel discussion. We will then open the floor to questions from the audience. So without further ado, may I call Ms. Nihal Mansouri, who is the head of technical studies at the Ministry of Energy, Transition and Renewable Energy, to do a very short presentation about green hydrogen for energy transition in Algeria. Over to you, Nihal, with thanks. Is that okay?
Well, now.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good. We can see you now.
So the problem was with the tablet. It's the first time I use it. So good morning, everyone. Good evening, wherever you are. I would like to give a big thanks for the organizer of this online event, especially Khalid, and also for the ABC platform to enable people to communicate and to exchange and to share their personal experience in different sectors. So starting with talking about the green hydrogen for the energy transition in Algeria. As an employee in the Ministry of Energy Transition, I would like to start to give a quick recap of what we are doing in the ministry, which has been recently created almost 1 year, well, in the next of July 2021. So the next, please.
Okay.
Well, for the Ministry of Energy Transition, hold on a second. I have a problem with. Okay, for the Ministry of Energy Transition, as I have already mentioned, it has been created since a year ago. The main objective of this of this ministry is to implement a national policy and strategies related to renewable energy and energy transition, to implement a national energy model for the energy transition in a renewable energy, energy efficiency, and also the sustainable development, and also to how to promote the energy use. The next, please. As I have already mentioned, the National Program of Energy Transition is based on 4 pillars: the renewable energy development, the energy efficiency promotion, the energy modeling, and the law of energy transition. For the mission, I have already mentioned them briefly in order to respect the timing. So the next, please. Anyway, you can find the details about the ministry on the website. It's mentioned on the presentation. So before we get into the activities of the ministry, I would like to describe a little bit the green hydrogen concept and what is green hydrogen and why. Because I have noticed through social media, LinkedIn, and even in the real life that people still sometimes not convinced about the hydrogen, even the hydrogen story, whether it's blue, green, or other colors. So let's start in with talking a little bit about green hydrogen. So the next, please. The green hydrogen, in fact, is the same molecule, the most abundant material in the universe. However, the difference in green hydrogen among the other types of hydrogen is the production source. For the case of green hydrogen, we produce hydrogen from the renewable energies, which means, from the electricity produced from the renewable energy. So we have the green electricity that helps to break down the water molecule into oxygen and hydrogen, and then we get the usage of hydrogen for other application. The next slide, please. So the most features about green hydrogen is carbon free. It means that it helps to reach the neutrality goals, ambition, the decarbonization of many sectors, especially for those who is difficult to decarbonize. The difference between green, blue, and green, and even other colors, I found black, yellow, turquoise, and many other colors, is the neutrality, the amount of emission of CO2. For the case of green, we have the hydrogen produced from the steam methane reforming process. For the blue hydrogen, the same case as in the green one, however, the CO2 emitted is sequestrated. And the next. I hope I'm not fast in speaking because I feel like
Good.
Okay. So for the application, sometimes when we talk about the concept of sector coupling related to hydrogen, it means that it helps to maybe make an equilibrium between the different between the network from the energy source until the final energy usage. For example, as you can see on this chart, that we have the production of green hydrogen from the renewable powers like solar, wind, especially in most cases. And then we have 2 different usage of hydrogen. We know the first one with the chemical usage, like in industry, as a feedstock, and the other application is as an energy vector. That's why we are interested in the green hydrogen or hydrogen generally. We have the mobility application, like using the fuel cell. We have the petrochemical industry. We have the fertilizer for transforming hydrogen into another energy carrier, such as methanol, ammonia, and other chemicals, and also for heat in building sector. The next one. So backing into Algeria. So since I hope you have already, for people who still haven't a clear idea about the green hydrogen, right now I'm going to talk about the first activity, since we have already since that the ministry have just started. It's affirmed, the ambition to implement and develop green hydrogen production in Algeria. As a first start, we have the exploratory study of green hydrogen Power to X with the Energy German partnership GIZ in Algeria in the last February. The study will help to explore the potential of energy in Algeria in terms of renewable, the availability of water and other conditions to develop this technology. And later in April, we have made a workshop co-organized with the Ministry of Higher Education and Research Science for the development of green hydrogen and its potential for the energy transition. This workshop has gathered a lot of people, a lot of participants, researchers, representatives from national, international organization, and from the public and private sector. And at the final, the ministry have made the declaration of signature of declaration with Ministry of Higher Education to develop the green hydrogen research and development platform, which we called Green Hydrogen Alliance. The next one, please. So as I have mentioned, the concept of green hydrogen is still new. It has been only 4 to 5 months ago. So the challenges are still a lot, and I guess this webinar will be the opportunity to get into deeper topics like other aspects for the development of this material. Thank you, and for any further information about the Green Hydrogen Alliance and the details of workshop, you can contact me. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Nihal, for a very informative presentation and for setting the scene and for going at the right pace. You know, you respected the time allocated, which is very nice. Thank you. I'm sure the audience have a lot of questions for you. That includes me. But we have to, I guess, leave it until the questions and answers session later. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So may I now invite our second presenter, Dr. Frank Ranken from the German-Algeria Energy Partnership, who will present something about his organization and what they're up to in Algeria. So I'll stop sharing. And you can share your screen, Frank. Yeah?
Yes, I will do so in a minute, but maybe just start with presenting myself and the German-Algerian partnership. So as Madame Nihal had already explained, we are working very closely together with the Ministry for Energy Transition and Renewable Energies, the MTR en Algeria, also with the Ministry for Energy. This partnership has been started back in 2015 with a memorandum of understanding between the German Ministry for Economics and Energy and the then Ministry for Energy in Algeria. And it has been granted to GIZ, for which I'm working, 100% owned by the German state company for public utility in 2017 with the secretariat in Algiers. I'm personally working as a conseiller principal for this secretariat since the last year, and hopefully I will be back soon in Algiers when the flight chaos will be back in order. At the moment, I should be already in Algiers at the moment, but there were some problems. Nevertheless, the energy partnership is all about renewable energies and energy efficiency. So we have a steering committee that is led by high-ranking members of the two governments once a year, and then two working groups on energy efficiency and renewable energies. Since the last year, actually, a third issue, namely green hydrogen, had come very much into focus, and this is why we started last year the scoping study that Madame Nihal just talked about. which is about to be finished soon. We having this scoping study doing together with the consultants of a Tractable, which is a partly German, partly French group of consultants very much into this whole affair. And the first result, preliminary result, are to be expected at this actually on course this week. We'll have an atelier around this the 1st of July, which unfortunately won't be public. But I just said this because you can imagine that the final study will be there then at the end of July. So we'll have definitely a public meeting just after summer, if the Algerian ministries and the Algerian government wants so. So it was all dependent on this, and we, from the German side, we are very happy that to hear from Monsieur Chitour and the Minister Benzian, the Minister for Research, that they want to present a project for a roadmap for establishing a green hydrogen industry in Algiers to the government as soon as the roadmap has been elaborated. Maybe I'll have some words on the background in Germany, but that might be interesting for Algerian business partners, and I'd like to maybe to share 2 slides. So this is now an experiment. I don't know whether I'll find this. Wait a minute. Yes, I think I do so. I can't see. Can you see what I see at the moment? Right. Are you seeing the slide on my screen?
Yes, we are seeing your screen.
Perspective allemande sur l'hydrogène vert, c'est ça?
We don't see slides yet. We can see just your
all right. Okay.
Directory that you're in. Mm-hmm. It's probably not open yet.
Is this better now?
Not yet.
I can't tell really where it is. I'm sorry. This is my personal computer, so because...
Sorry, I think you have shared just the one window, not the whole screen of your computer. Mm-hmm. That's why it's still showing us the same screen.
Yes, wait a minute.
I think what you need to do is unshare, open the file that you want to share, then go to just that window.
Yeah, and check the option.
Yeah. There you go.
It's better now?
Yep.
All right. So you see perspective allemande sur l'hydrogène, c'est ça?
Yep.
All right. So what you see here is part of the introduction that has been given by our consultants of Tractable to the ministerial meeting on the 19th of April, of which Madame Nihal had already talked about. So you could see that in Germany at the moment, and it's not just in Germany, but there's really a kind of gold rush atmosphere, and this is why we give this first quote. The idea is that green hydrogen will become as much as a very much important like petrol has been in the past. And the main point about it is that we have now in Germany a constant replacement of fossil industries, fossil fuel as a basis for electricity generation for 20 years now. So at the moment, the part of renewables in the energy mix when it comes to electricity production is about 50%. So it is clear to see that if it goes on like this, maybe in 2035, maybe in 2050, more or less almost 100% could be based on of electricity production could be based on renewables. That is mainly wind, offshore, onshore, as well as photovoltaics, but also other sources. But no nuclear power, of course. The problem is that if you want to have a monde zero carbon, it needs to be that also the sectors of industry, certain sectors of industry change their production. So, for example, steel industry, concrete industry has to turn away from fossil based energy, and also, of course, aviation or navigation. So green hydrogen is seen in Germany now as one of the very important factor to come to a zero carbon future in the within.
We lost you, Frank.
The next 20 years. This projection, pardon?
We just lost you for a minute there.
On this basis, all right, okay. On this basis, the potential for import is very high. I just give you this slide. So you can see this is a very rough projection. So at the moment, there is no real solid figures that could really tell what will happen in the future, of course. But if you take only this one that has been produced by a research center of Jülich, you could see that there's a projection now in 2050 that Germany might import 3.14 million tons of green hydrogen every year in 2050, on the basis that 75% of aviation and other industries have already been turned to green hydrogen. So this would result, if you put in a cost for 1 kilogram of 4.66 euros. If you just extrapolate this, you would have a figure of, let's say, 15 billion euros market for import from other countries. So at the moment, it's a real possibility for all countries to get into this. This is why I had this quote in the beginning. At the moment, a country like Algeria is exporting gas, of course, and also petrol. But what will happen in 20, 30, 40 years? So Algeria is a potential exporter for sun-based, wind-based energy, and hydrogen will play an important role. So this is just the very general remark on this. We have now what we call a Wasserstoffstrategie, hydrogen strategy in Germany. And this is not just paper or figures, it's real about money. So at the moment, for example, there is a budget of 9 billion euros reserved for the development of a hydrogen industry and transport and everything that's connected to it. And this budget is not touchable for 10 years, so it will be there. And out of the 9 billion, 2 billion are for international cooperation. So you can see there is a real possibility, and I will give you now an idea what this means in terms of instruments. Could you see this now? The instrument financier prévu pour les projets internationaux, H2. Voilà. I won't get into the detail because actually I'm not the absolute expert in it, but this is a very short presentation or summary produced by the Ministry for Energy and Economics in Germany. So you could see that there is the main objective is to promote installations of green hydrogen and its so-called derivatives, that is ammoniac, methanol, synfuels, or others, in other countries that are not part of the EU and not part of the European Free Trade Zone, which includes also Iceland and Norway. So it's obvious that countries like Algeria or the other Maghreb countries, as the next door neighbors, have a very good potential base for developing a base for export or to benefit from this. By the way, I have to say that it's not based. All these instruments are not based exclusively for installations that would be produced for export. So the ministry at one point told me explicitly that if Algeria or other partners decide to produce green hydrogen also for internal markets, that's of course not a counter argument to get support of this type. So it's real question of decision of the partners themselves. So at the moment we have two main sorts of supports that are in question. First of all, you see that there will be a sort of classic capex support for projects of, at the moment, the talk is about 15 million euros maximum for each candidate for each project. And second, there is a mechanism that is very important, which has been introduced officially this week, which is called H2 Global, and I will come to this in a second. I don't want to get into details here about all the ligne directrices, so the conditions. I could share this slide, this presentation, which is public to you afterwards, so you could get into it. And anyway, many of the details are not yet clear because it's a process that's really going on, even though it's fast. It's just some months on, and all these instruments have been put into place or are in discussion with just some months. So it's not worth getting into everything. What is certainly interesting is that geographically speaking, it is about installations put into place hors UE, outside the European Union, but at the same time, you have to have a permanent base somehow in Germany. I can't tell for the moment how this would be, what this does mean in practice, but this will certainly play a certain role. What you see here is we have, when it comes to direct subsidies of either 15 million up to 50 million euros, there will be funds available. That have not been put into place for the moment. So everyone thinks that it will come into practice in 2022 or 2023. There will be a second program which might be interesting for smaller scale enterprises, which is called H2 Up. So this is a classic instrument of development cooperation where the idea is to have a private-public partnership that will be subsidized of smaller amounts up to 200,000 euros by project. So these funds, as I said, are not yet available, but will come into place. Certainly, the very important thing when it comes to costs is this instrument, which is called H2 Global. As you all know, green hydrogen is not competitive at the moment. So Algeria is already producing gray hydrogen as a produit fatal, Koppelprodukt of the petrochemical industry, and is very important for applications in the fertilizers industry as well as in other areas. And of course, green hydrogen won't be competitive tomorrow and for the next years. So the idea is to have a market ramp up to create this instrument H2 Global, which will buy up. Its core is what is called HINCO. You'll find it in the down there in the left side. HINCO is a foundation created by the state plus 16 companies in Germany. It has just come into place this week in Hamburg, based in Hamburg, and they are controlling a budget that is there to have contracts for difference, so that the hydrogen, the green hydrogen that will be too expensive, will be subsidized by this fund, so that it can compete with gray hydrogen in the German market. So at the moment, as the companies that are present there, some are very known, like Siemens, for example, Thyssen, Linde, and others. And this this mechanism will probably be in place for a period of 10 years, starting from 2024. So you could imagine that between 2024 and 2034, every country like Algeria that has been able to produce certified green hydrogen has a chance to get the products to
We lost you again, Frank.
German market. Okay. So of course, that with the scale, yes,
the
idea is that with the scaling up of industry within this 10 years, it will become more and more cheaper for all countries and producers to have this. So in the end, this mechanism will end, and then after 10 years, this is the idea. There's another slide that explains this a bit more into detail, but I leave it here just not to prevent the discussion. So thanks for your attention, and I'll be there for a debate.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. I think I think what happened here is very good, and it's good to know what you guys are up to. Thank you very much. I think we go straight to our next presenter, Paul. Paul is, or Paul, maybe it's better that you introduce yourself.
Well, if you like, so I think many people will know me still, especially Algeria is always in my heart. We have a lot of friends from the beginning of, and you may remember this Desertec in 2009, that we call that today Desertec 1.0. And today we are quite advanced on that. I try to get now this presentation of today. Can you see this?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you see the presentation. So it works. That's amazing, because normally I have the same problem as Nihal and Frank, but it works. So actually, as we already heard from Nihal and Frank, I mean, emission-free energy, hydrogen or green hydrogen, or whoever you call it, is a boost to the regional and also the global energy transition. And of course, Algeria will play an important role. And it's good to see that the ministry is taking this up. And from DII, as we are called, since DII Desert Energy, we have a very clear mission for quite some years, and the mission is clear: no emissions. So whatever processes in the energy sector and in all the industry sectors, the purpose is that we get rid of all kinds of harmful emissions. And the deserts, and I don't have to tell you this, in your area there is so much energy, and there is place, and there is an industrial culture, and there are good people, and very smart governments and all that. And also the international cooperation is helping to make this happen. So it is quite possible within 20, 30, 50 years to become completely emission-free in your region. And as I said, years ago, we started with so-called Desertec, a lot of fuss. It was called a German project, and especially in Algeria, there were high emotions about Desertec because it was seen as a sort of neo-colonialistic project, building big power stations in the deserts of Algeria and in other countries, power for the Germans or for Europe. Actually, we very soon changed this idea in the sense that what it is all about is to make the whole energy value chain in the region emission-free, and also prepare the region to become an exporter of whatever form of energy. It can be electrons or can be molecules. Today we call that Desertec 3.0. You can see it here. Where we started 12 years ago was more sort of a German project. And then in 2015, we decided to move the whole project to Dubai, where the team ever since is working. And from Dubai, we work with all countries in the region to make the region, to create first a local market. That is the first thing to do. You cannot export from a market that is still fossil. Okay, how can you export green energy from fossil markets? So the whole movement was then to help the governments and the industry to become emission-free. And what we see now in the last few years, also with the hydrogen wave that is rolling over the region, that this region is becoming very soon, is preparing actually to become a powerhouse to the world markets. It's not only energy to Germany or energy to Europe. It's like LNG, a kind of energy that you can deliver to the whole world. So the Desertec 3.0. We are basically a group of companies. We went through different phases. In the beginning, it was very German. Today, it is basically very Arab and also international, with China and United States and other countries in Europe that are working together to create actually a market for renewables, a market for hydrogen, for infrastructure, for storage and flexible demand, all kind of demand developments. We work also a lot, well, we are very much public-private, so we work a lot also with, like, for instance, GIZ, the KfW, but also many other institutions and ministries in the region, because this is not something that the industry can do alone. Yeah, of course not. And also governments cannot do this alone. We have to do this together, this energy transition. Then about hydrogen, you already mentioned Nihal and Frank. Hydrogen is typically a new element to couple industries. It is a green molecules or a kind of energy carrier to complement the present energy transition or the energy value chains. And we also see very, very much that many people always think hydrogen is for cars or something like that, or for the energy sector, for the power sector. But I think the main priority, the first priority is to decarbonize the heavy energy intensive industry, like steel factories and fertilizers and that kind of industries. But other industries and applications will follow. It's a matter of the market, a matter of the cost and the prices. Then the first thing that we always underline in countries like we have in Morocco and in Egypt and in other countries in the region is look locally in your own your own market, what parts of the demand can be decarbonized through hydrogen factories, for instance, or kind of industrial processes, because that prevents transport. And any transport to remote places in the world also adds cost and adds emissions, actually. And if the target is to lower the emissions, then the first thing is to make your own energy system emission-free. So that's the one thing. But of course, there is a point that you will be able to export, especially if there is subsidized markets where you get a lot of premium for your product. Then, of course, this production cost and also the fact that the emissions will increase may nevertheless make this happen. Then also important to underline that this whole hydrogen play it will be part of the power system play. The first thing will be, of course, electricity, and there will be no green hydrogen without green electrons. So the issue now in all the countries, we see that the question is how can hydrogen production processes be integrated in the power systems and in the industries, from the supply side, the transmission side, the storage side, and the demand side. In DII, we did a lot of work in the last, actually we started very early with hydrogen already in 2016 in Dubai. And we were one of the first. People were laughing at us as usual. They did not believe that it could become something useful that we started. And we did also some studies, also with the European Commission, the so-called, and the European Commission also took our advice to connect the markets of Europe with the markets of North Africa, the so-called 2x40 gigawatts initiative. And that it has become part of the Green Deal of the European Commission, which, by the way, is headed by Frans Timmermans, is a Dutch guy, and he understood already in an early stage the importance of pushing hydrogen. And we also worked with Friedrich Ebert Stiftung in Germany and GIZ and others on this topic of green hydrogen production and export. And very important is also that we get data and facts. On the one hand, we look at the projects that we have in the market, in the region, the North Africa and Middle East region already show a lot, and actually an explosion of renewable energy projects. We counted a year ago 1,500. I'm quite sure today it's much more, and this will explode further. And we did a lot of analysis and cost modeling of the levelized cost of hydrogen and the levelized cost of green ammonia. As you know, green ammonia, like we see in Saudi Arabia and in other places, is a very good way to transport and to store the energy from actually hydrogen. So to transport hydrogen is very difficult, but it's better to first transfer this, convert it to ammonia, and then transport ammonia. Well, given the time, I go very quickly. We made also studies in the Gulf states, the GCC, about the question, what are the benefits to the countries? The first thing also in Algeria is that there will be jobs, local industries, and we did a study with Roland Berger, the German consulting company, and we came to the conclusion that in the GCC states alone, the jobs that will be created in the coming decades on this energy transition, so to say, will be 1 million jobs, which is considerable. So we get a shift from the oil and gas sector to the green power and green molecule sector. We founded last year, 2 years ago, the so-called MENA Hydrogen Alliance. This is an alliance of the industry worldwide with footprint in MENA, this is the Middle East and North Africa. And we had already a couple of meetings. Most of them, due to COVID, were, of course, by video, but even we had some physical meetings in the last period. Like, for instance, in Dubai, it has been possible to have physical meetings, quite a few. And we are pushing for actually it's promoting, so to say, the use of hydrogen in the desert areas of North Africa and Middle East. Yeah, and then don't go into detail, but if you look today in many countries, like the UAE, they were more the pioneers, as so often. You see, like in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, a lot of initiatives, and also in Dubai already a small system with Siemens working today. In Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, there is a very large project, and I'm quite sure that most of you have heard about the NEOM project in the northwest of the kingdom. That's an area as large as Belgium, and that will be developed as a totally emission-free region, and with small industries, but also with a lot of immobility, or with real estate and villages and settlements. And they have already closed a contract for $5 billion on green hydrogen. And I'm personally very much in contact, because the boss of this energy and water in NEOM is my former boss, Peter Therium. And we see then also what it means to set up such a large project. What are all the aspects? It should also become, of course, economic. In Oman, we see a project coming up in Egypt, especially announced, I think, last week, also with our partner ThyssenKrupp, and in Morocco, of course, with IRSN and with the ministry projects, also not only for export, but also for local substitution. Yeah, then that brings me actually, of course, and you will ask the question, what about Algeria? And I'm quite happy that Nihal and also Frank, they talk about what is going on in Algeria with studies. And the ministry has, of course, the subject on its screen, on its radar. That is good. Because Algeria, and already we said that a long time ago, is at the heart of the whole infrastructure. Algeria is the country with the most most intensive experience in some like the gas and electricity industry. It's a relatively good infrastructure. It is, so to say, at the heart of the gas infrastructure in North Africa, with connections to Europe. And as you know, the gas pipelines can be used for hydrogen. And can be upgraded and again, of course, extended. Like we are talking about extension of the electrical connections. The electrical connections are still important, and they will be extended. Like in Morocco and Spain are extending this electrical connection. There is a project in preparation of an electrical connection between Morocco and the United Kingdom, the UK. It's a long line. But also on the gas side, we believe there will be a lot of projects in the coming time. Also, as you can see on the right side, gas connection from Italy, or in Greece, Italy to Egypt, and to Saudi Arabia. So these are all potential projects that we see on the horizon. Actually, last year and the year before, I wrote together with a German journalist, Dr. Isenburg, a book on emission-free energy from MENA. And we will soon publish this in the French language, because it's more convenient for the Maghreb. So we have translated this book. I hope that it will be on the market in a few months from now. So I'm very happy to be here, and of course, always available, as you know, for any questions. Also the nasty questions.
There will be some, Paul. Thank you so much, Paul. I know 10 minutes is short, but you really covered so many key points. Again, we'll wait for the questions. We'll make sure that the questions come later. So now what I'd like to do is first introduce the people, the panelists who did not get a chance to present something. So I'm not going to go through, I think, all their background, because I think each one of them could probably fill a number of pages, but I'll just say a couple of words about each. So I'll start with Dr. Hakim Ben Creed of Air Products. Just very simply, very quickly, Hakim is the director of helium sourcing for the Global Helium Group. Air Products' interest and experience in hydrogen is, we believe, second to none and goes back years. So hopefully his input will be useful to all of us here. Then Dr. Mustafa Ruki, who's a senior fellow of the Oxford Institute of Energy Studies and an independent energy consultant. Mustafa is involved in research on the MENA region on GHG emissions and preparation for potential international decarbonization measures. Then Dr. Najib Derwish, who's a senior researcher for environmental science and engineering at CRTSE. His research is focused on water and wastewater for circular economy and sustainability. So we have three people who have very different backgrounds. And by the way, Hakim is based in the US, Mustafa in the UK, and Najib in Algeria. Thank you very much, guys. I'm going to use one of my privileges, of course, which is asking the questions. So I shall start with one very generic question, which is why hydrogen and why now? If I can put Mustafa on the spot to start with that, please, go ahead.
Can you see me?
Yep.
Right. Before I answer the question, I'd like to just to elaborate a bit on the theme of the webinar today is hydrogen vert or green hydrogen. What I would like to say is we should consider both the blue and green hydrogen. And I know that some parties which are totally against blue hydrogen, and it is perceived as a way of prolonging the life of the fossil fuel industry. But we need to be pragmatic and realistic at the same time. And in fact, even the European Union in its July 2020 strategy acknowledged the fact that all other forms of hydrogen other than green hydrogen should be considered in the short to medium term to reduce immediately or very quickly emission, and also to increase or help the scaling up of green energy capacity. Because the problem with green energy, and this is a statement of the obvious, people who are involved in the thing, they know that it will take a while before a proper scaling up of the green hydrogen capacity is put in place. In the meantime, you need to have an alternative, and I look at it, as a temporary, transitory alternative, blue hydrogen, and it is very relevant in a region like the MENA region, whether it's Algeria or some other countries of the MENA region. I'm happy to comment more on that later. Now, moving to your question, I suppose, why hydrogen, why now? If we want to be more specific with respect to Algeria, I have to remember, maybe some people would not remember it, but in the case of Algeria, the question of hydrogen was raised, I would say, in the late 90s, beginning of 2000. But of course, given the challenges that the country faced and face, that has not been followed up. Now, in a more general way, in terms of the MENA region or globally, the interest in hydrogen, in fact, globally, it has been, looked at for over a long period of time. But why now? I would say two main drivers. First of all is what I would call renewable energy revolution and the drastic reduction in generation cost based on the LOCE. And the second thing is the climate change urgency, the fact that things have reached a stage where decision should have been taken yesterday rather than today. So these two drivers are the main element why it is now. Now, why hydrogen? We need to, I know there is a lot of excitement about hydrogen, and I understand, given the numbers of webinars, hundreds or even more than that, webinars and articles, everybody's into it. But what I would say when it comes to hydrogen or clean hydrogen, and I include that blue and green hydrogen, it could be turquoise. What is important, hydrogen is just one element of what I would call an energy transition strategy, a strategy that should be integrated, a strategy that should include not only hydrogen, but the introduction of renewable energy, or the expansion of renewable energy, or what I would call green electrification, and that is very important, and also energy efficiency measures, provided that there is the right, what I would say, pricing environment. So I believe I answered the question, and I could say a little bit more if I have time, if you want. Do I have a bit more time to? I'll leave it to later.
All right, we can come back to you. If I may,
I'll leave the other panelists. That's all for now.
Okay, I think if I may ask maybe the same question to Hakim, to have your perception of this and your opinion. Why hydrogen and why now? You're on mute, Hakim.
There you go. Hello, everyone. Great panel here, and good starting point from the three presenters. Really enjoyed it. Although, all the presentations to me, were very generic, ambitious, talking about what things are going to happen. But yeah, a lot of people are going to be asking, why hydrogen as a fuel? But here's some facts. For example, if you want to make hydrogen through electrolysis, but you bring power to it coming from natural gas, for example, you would have to, and I have some numbers, you would have to produce 23 kilograms of carbon in order to make 1 kilogram of hydrogen. If you have to do it with like coal firing method to make electricity, you make 51 kilograms per 1 kilogram of hydrogen. So I'm trying to talk about what Mustafa had said about the environment. The environment is very important, but through electrolysis of water, using green energy, either solar or wind or what have you, then there is zero emission. So this is one of the biggest thing. In the company I work for, we produce a lot of hydrogen, and that started for refinery. Hydrogen is needed, to break down large molecules of hydrocarbons. So as Paul mentioned, and I think it's very important to understand, transportation of hydrogen to other places is crucial, and it has to be done through ammonia, and then you make ammonia dissociation in order to recover your hydrogen. So that's a very important thing for, as he mentioned about LNG. We can liquefy hydrogen, but it is costly, and you have to go through a very expensive catalyst, because hydrogen has tendency to go back into gas just through that latent energy it has in it. So as we made on the disclaimer, that the opinions we have to put are just ours and not our employer, I am sure those who are into the hydrogen projects, they know of us, even in the NEOM project and in Canada and the US. And so I think my contribution in this is going to be more of probably technical than project development in terms of how I want to mention is in our campus we run hydrogen cars and hydrogen buses. We have a very large campus. We go from one lab to another, one building to another, and I am one of the ambassadors for fuel cell hydrogen. So I often drive a Toyota Mirai, which is a hydrogen car, and I fill it in our campus, and it has a good range. It doesn't beat the new Tesla, but it's about 225 miles per charge. It takes about 5 kilograms of hydrogen. And there is a misconception in the hydrogen fuel cell. Basically, a car that is running with hydrogen fuel cell is an electric car. We go back to an electric car. The fuel cell is only there to produce electricity. So the power is electricity. It's a fuel car. It's an electric car. So both of them who are going to be charged from the wall in a charging station directly with electricity or putting hydrogen in it, they will end up running the same way. I'm sure those experts, they agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hakim. That was great. Thanks for clarifying this. I think before going to one of the presenters, I'd like to get the opinion of Najib, if I may, please, because he didn't get a chance to speak yet.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to take part in this panel. Also, thank you for the speakers for the insightful presentation. Regarding your question, I think that there is a several reasons that are driving us to use green hydrogen. So we have the depletion of fossil fuel here in Algeria. I am talking about Algeria. So we have also increase in internal consumption of gas and then electricity. Also, we have to push our economy and to create jobs. We have a lot of unemployment here in Algeria. And finally, I think that we are committed to reduce our greenhouse emission in the framework of the COP21 by 7%. And this is the main reason for what we have to go further in green hydrogen.
Okay. Thank you, Najib. Paul, you can go ahead now.
I
You
think
wanted to intervene?
the question why hydrogen is, of course, a very important question. I think we can only answer this on two levels. The one level is I think we believe, as internationally, on the long term, hydrogen will be an important factor in the energy chain. And through hydrogen, you can connect different industries and different applications and reduce the cost. That's on the long term. On the short term, there will be not yet this advantage. And on the short term, you see a lot of trials and confusions and even larger costs, even more emissions, by the way. So on the short term, why hydrogen is because there are a lot of budgets, subsidies and governments that are pushing this. This is on the short term. But I want to point at this very important fact that we should always keep in mind the real purpose of hydrogen is to lower the emissions. And we should always be very careful not subsidize or do any project or initiative that will raise emissions in a disproportional way. It's very important because if we would do this, that would backfire to the whole movement, because the international community is really looking at this emission aspect, and if there is a lot of government money in place to subsidize this start-up of the hydrogen markets, it's very important then to, as soon as we can, to lower the cost so that it's become competitive and to show that it will not lead to higher emissions.
Okay, thank you. Nihal, do you have any Any comments on this?
I hope that the comments won't make confusion with me being in the ministry. However, for what's related to, sorry, I get a call. And what's related to why green hydrogen, I think it will be, since hydrogen is really used in the industry sector, and when we're talking about the decarbonization of the sector in Algeria, we can say that that hydrogen is only used in industry. For example, as they mentioned before, green hydrogen for petrochemical industry, for steel production. So when talking about electric vehicles, still in Algeria, we don't have electric vehicles. That's already the fleet doesn't already exist. When talking about why green hydrogen, the same case for heating buildings. So we can say that the hydrogen might be the linkage to start to accelerate the energy transition. And I think that they have really explained the concept of green hydrogen. However, for the transportation, I have when we're going deeper into the panel, maybe we'll have some question related to the opportunities for the development of green hydrogen, and also the question of transportation, because when talking about methanol, he already clarified the story of liquefaction, that is costly, and in fact it is real. But for methanol, for example, someone might ask why we have solar a great potential in terms of solar energy, why producing electricity and then turn it into hydrogen and then methanol and then transport it into other usage. So the long value chain might also be a question to really why transport it into other carriers. So I think that with the panel we can discuss more this part. And also, I forgot a point, is for the storage. I think green hydrogen will be very interesting in terms of storage of surplus of the electricity produced from renewables. Also for the isolated areas and other industry that have difficulty to access to decarbonization solution other than green hydrogen. So
thank you, Nihal. I'm going to just make a comment here. I see that there are a lot of people raising their hands for asking questions. The way we would like to play it is that we give an opportunity to the panelists first to comment, and then we'll come back to the questions. We might go one question at a time and come to the audience for questions first, and then we might come back to another question to the panelists and so on. Please be patient with us and bear with us. It will come. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for your patience. I'd like to ask also Frank for any comments he might have.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to add a point that seems to be important to me. The whole discussion is based on the question, the whole discussion is dependent on whether or not the Algerian government will opt for this industry, because in all countries, Germany included, this whole project of building up a green hydrogen industry is 100% dependent on state action. So like any other crucial development in the past, or many of the crucial development in the past, it was state intervention that paved the way for this. And I hope very much that within the next few months it will further materialize. So the signs are there, and I think this is the point. The point is that if you can't miss the train two times. I mean, at the moment, something's getting off. And of course, you always have to take into account that a certain aspect of hype has to take into account. So you shouldn't, have something headless just because everyone gets into it. But at the moment, there is this possibility via cooperation with other countries like Germany. It's a chance to have let's say a sort of industrial revolution. And when it comes to the question of green and blue hydrogen, so I think that of course it's tempting to think about blue hydrogen, or even to develop turquoise hydrogen, because if you get the carbon out of it in a solid form, then so it's climate neutral, so that might be good. I just want to remark on this. First of all, basic fact is that at the moment, at least for the instruments that are promoted by the German government, it's all for green hydrogen, first of all. I don't know what it's when it comes to the European strategy, because there might be a considerable fund from this area as well. But second, I mean, you have to think strategically. Are we talking about the next 20 years, or are we talking about the next 100 years? So potentially, Algeria could become a exporter of green power, like it has been a exporter for natural gas or oil. So, and at least when it comes to the first part of the industry, green and blue hydrogen are completely different set of industries. So it sounds close. So I won't be dogmatic about it, not at all. So if there by any chance to develop it in parallel, so why not? But I am afraid that in the end, one development might just be au détriment de l'autre. Last but not least, just one remark, and I think Madame Nihal already mentioned or referred to it in a way. I mean, there's one big contradiction at the moment, and we have to be frank about it. This is, transport. So Germany has now entered into 5 hydrogen alliances with other countries, namely Chile, Australia, Morocco, Tunisia, and United Emirates, and hopefully very soon with Algeria, we will see. And but when I just looked this week, the relation with Australia has been sealed, and there are very impressive milestones for the roadmap. Of course, there's one question that is still there: is if you put green hydrogen into vessels that are moved forward by diesel and very much polluting the climate. So I mean, this can't be an option. And there, Algeria is of course in a big advantage, as far as I know. But the technicians here have to relate to this. As far as I know, industrialists told me that you can mix hydrogen with natural gas in an existing gas pipeline, so up to 12% or something like this. There's this question of porosity. I'm not sure, so you have to react to this.
Up to 20% up to now, what people say anyway. That's what
so anyway, if this would materialize, and we will see the studies will be there, then Algeria, I think, will be in a very, very positive situation. Then really could say, if we build up extra capacities, that's the point. We can't just produce hydrogen from, let's say, the very small amount of green renewables that are there, but we have to build an extra plant with an extra desalination to get the water, to have an extra sun-based or wind-based plant, and then this electrolyzer. And then I think once it is done, the perspective is really there to develop this on a very high scale. This is my hope.
Okay, thank you very much, Frank. I think, guys, if you don't mind, I'm going to let a couple of people ask their questions or make their comments before we move on to the next point, if it's okay, because there are people who have been waiting for a while. So, if I may ask Belqasem to go ahead with his question. Belqasem, you with us? You raised your hand? Belqasem?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Thank you for taking my question, and thank you to everyone for the presentation and for the information that they are giving. My question is as a follow-up to what Hakeem said. So the question is there a case study or and a proof of concept that at the end of the day, we are better off with hydrogen. And the second part of it, I guess, is do we really have enough data to make an educated decision about hydrogen? I like to make a little small comment here also. Is it not easier to just go straight to convert harvested CO2 to methane to electricity? Just a suggestion. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Bilqasem. Hakim, may I prompt you on this one?
That's a loaded question here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I just said, it's a loaded question, Mr. Bilqasem. A lot of things there. Look, hydrogen has been used as an essential element in the petrochemical industry for a very long time. And also, it's a wonderful fuel. That's why we send all our rockets up in the orbit. Without it, we won't have that intense energy when it's mixed with liquid oxygen. So hydrogen is an essential element in the manufacturing of in the whole petroleum industry. When I say that is petrochemical. Also, don't forget the food industry. Hydrogenated products are a big deal, and they consume a lot of hydrogen as well. So hydrogen is here to stay. Now, we think about methane. It has four atoms of hydrogen, and if we can make hydrogen out of something coming from the ground, which is natural gas, essentially methane, then yes, the way we used to do it, and we still do it today, is through reforming. So we reform natural gas with steam through a catalyst in a big furnace, and therefore we burn natural gas in order to bring that energy, and we create flue gas for gray hydrogen. If we're making hydrogen or syngas or whatever we're making, it's going to be sent to the atmosphere as a greenhouse gas. Then we move to the next step, and we make an effort to think about the environment. And as Ms. Nihal explained, you capture that hydrogen. That means you're still using fossil fuels, but the hydrogen you make, and then also it was also mentioned by one of the presenters that if you can capture that carbon and not letting go anywhere and put it back in the ground, then it's fine. Your hydrogen is somewhat, green, because you have not really created any damage to the environment. So, and then there is this concept of, hey, okay, but if you want to transport ammonia from Chile to Germany, you're going to be burning a lot of diesel. So you are defying the purpose. I'll open a parenthesis here. We have a huge project going on green ammonia, which means green hydrogen as well. But we will not, within the US, we will not transport the ammonia except by green trucks. So all our trucks will always run with green hydrogen. So we will not defy the purpose and contradict ourselves. So yeah, it's a major thing. And then, my question to everybody is, Algeria, with the natural gas industry and the philosophy they have, and the shale gas that is humongous in Algeria, how would we convince the Algerian government not to go to an easier route to explore and exploit shale gas instead? And that's an open question.
Thank you, Hakim. You're certainly broadening the debate and making sure that we go outside what we, our thoughts. So there are more people who want to speak here, but I think the next one that we have in my list here is Mulud Bakli. Mulud, do you want to jump in?
Yes, hi.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, all good. Go ahead.
Nice. Good evening, everyone, or good morning, some of the guys in California. I'm Mulud Bakri. I'm basically in Dubai. I was about 10 years with the global head of at Air Liquid Solar. Worked also in hydrogen fuel cell for a couple of years at Air Liquid. My question is simple. I mean, we're talking about green hydrogen. Nobody has mentioned the cost of producing 1 kilogram of green hydrogen. If you look at not the green, whatever hydrogen coming from the fossil fuel, we're talking about maximum $1.5 per kg. The electrolysis approach right now, from the number I've seen, is between $13 and $15 per kg. Isn't that very optimistic to go from $15 to less than $2, except if we have some disruptive technology? Everybody's focusing on electrolyzer. I think, my point of view, actually, I'm doing some due diligence, basically, because I have an office here in Masdar in Abu Dhabi, and an accelerator building, and we have some things going on, some works going on there. I'm just questioning the experts here. Do you think there will be a disruptive technology that comes out of, not out of the blue? Actually, it's already existing in California. There are some not more than startup companies working on that today. And these guys, it's not electrolyzer at all, and it's still green because they're using green energy. Would it be electricity? Would it be PV or wind? But it's a totally different approach, and they're getting right now, today in 2021, they're getting less than $2 per kg. Nobody mentioned that. This is for me it could be a completely deal breaker for the electrolyzer. One. Number two, coming back to my Algeria love, it took us 10 years to do 300 or 400 megawatt today PV, which at Germany on plein COVID, in the COVID time in March last year, it's less than what Germany did in 1 month. I mean, I'm working on the 1 giga, and I mean we're active and et cetera, et cetera. I've been in Algeria the last 2 months, and I met a lot of stakeholders there. I'm still very puzzled on our ability to do PV. There's still this big lobby, oil and gas lobby is still there. We don't, like we say in French, nous n'avons pas le mode d'emploi. We still don't know how to do solar. We know how to do APC projects like SKTM, 50 megawatt, etc. We don't have today we did not understand yet what it does take to do IPP projects. And IPP projects is a completely different animal from EPC projects. It requires some very strong financial expertise. SPV, Paul is smiling because he and I have discussed this matter before. And we don't have that in Algeria. I mean, we do have this in an entity called AEC, which is doing desalination water. We do have actually some experts there, but nobody's talking to them, and they're not in the loop. But again, I'm not seeing how Algeria is going to do PV, and I hope I'm wrong. I have two. So I had one comment on PV and have one questions on disruptive technology.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Mulud. I think I'd probably ask two or three people to react to this one. If I may ask Mustafa first, because he's been waiting for a while. Mustafa, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I will leave the technology, disruptive technology part to Hakim, who would be able, I suppose, to answer this question. Actually, what the last question was I was going to follow it up, when I started talking about blue hydrogen, which is with the carbon capture of 90%. Personally, I'm agnostic. I mean, the objective is less emission, much less emission than what we have, and the objective is clearly green hydrogen if we opt for hydrogen. Now the question is, and I think the last person who asked the question really put his finger on a very critical issue. He was talking about electrolyzer. I just take the electrolyzer segment of the chain. Right now we have, suppose something like 200 or maybe 200 or 300 megawatt of electrolyzer globally. And the objective is to have several hundred gigawatt of electrolyzers. So you're talking about a lot of billions of dollars to finance the scaling up to have the right level of green hydrogen production. And in terms of cost, yes, what he was saying, blue hydrogen right now is 40% more expensive than gray hydrogen, which we don't want. But if you look at green hydrogen, he mentioned 15, but the estimates vary between $2 and $7 per kilogram. Anyway, it's a multiple of what blue hydrogen is. Now, if you look at different studies that have been conducted, I suppose IRENA, IEA, you see that in their graphs, within 10 years, the cost of green hydrogen will go down. It will be very close to blue hydrogen, which is right now not well considered by certain parts of the industries. Now, to be able to cross that 10 years, we need to get to that scaling up. Now, how are we going to finance the scaling up? We have seen, I hope I'm not wrong, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong. I've seen a couple of billions here and there of support, maybe $15 million for projects, but we're talking about a lot of money. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. And if you take the whole chain, taking it from renewable energy capacity, transmission, you may need new transmission line in some areas, electrolyzers, and all the way down, to transportation. You're talking about globally, you could be talking about several trillion dollars of investment. So the magnitude of the investment is very, very significant. That's why, and up to now, somebody should switch off his or her microphone. Up to now, there hasn't been clear indication or information on how these projects, and especially in the MENA region, and especially in North Africa, in the GCC, in the Gulf Cooperation countries, let's say they're in a better financial position. In fact, Saudi Arabia is doing blue and green hydrogen. They have better financial resources despite the constraints of the market. They're able to mobilize loans much easier than North Africa, but North Africa is in a different situation. So the question of financing is very critical. And we need, when I say we, I use the royal we, there need to be a lot of thinking on how the financing is going to be done. What is announced right now is, there should be government support. If you look at North Africa, there's no way the government can support. They're already struggling with the subsidies. Does it mean that these governments have to endebt themselves to invest in hydrogen projects? That's a possibility, but you have some other priorities. And I will add something else. As I said initially, hydrogen is just one element of the energy transition strategy. Renewable or clean electrification should be a priority. If you look at the MENA region, specifically the Arab region, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 countries, the projection in terms of the share of renewable energy in their electricity energy mix by 2030 or 2035 will not go over 30%. So you're in a situation, there is a lot of room for improvement to increase renewable energy capacity, because for hydrogen, you have to have surplus renewable or dedicate renewable energy capacity. Personally, I think the priority is to make sure that these countries have the ability to increase the share of renewable energy in the electricity mix. And it gets a bit complicated. I think the gentleman alluded to that. In some countries, gas-producing countries, they have invested so much in fossil fuel and gas-fired capacity that they find themselves right now with a surplus capacity with basically very little left for renewable energy, which is very unfortunate. So yes, hydrogen, and we're talking about the horizon for hydrogen is not today, tomorrow, or next year, or next 5 years. We're talking about 2040 and beyond. But right now, personally, I believe the focus should be on the clean electrification, increasing clean electrification in countries where it's still struggling to reach that level. That's all.
Thank you, Mustafa. I think that's maybe part of the answer. I think the other part, which is to do with technology, I would like to invite Najib to comment on that, if I may. Najib, especially on the water side and the technology of electrolyzers. Najib, you're with us? Najib Darwish? You're on mute.
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So regarding my background is really water treatment, and to develop the green hydrogen, we need a lot of water to consume. For instance, we need a liter of distilled water to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen. So since Algeria is considered that a scarce country, so I think that there is another option to alleviate this problem by using another source of water. In my point of view, can use treated wastewater, of course, after adding further treatment of based on membrane, instead of using desalination of seawater, which is most costly. And for instance, in Algeria, the produced cubic meter of desalinated water from sea cost around $0.6. And when we use, it's just a study I have made, when we use the tertiary treatment wastewater, it costs around $0.25. So it's cost effective compared to seawater desalination. And we have, Algeria has invested a lot in wastewater treatment. More than 200 stations are implemented along the country, mostly on gas process, so sludge, and other one on lagoon and in the south on lagoon, aerated lagoon. So we have plenty wastewater to use instead of dump it in the environmental body on the seawater. So maybe these resources can help to develop green energy here in Algeria.
Thank you, Najib. I think this probably is only part of the story, as in, this is just the production cost. So there are other aspects associated with it. And we might want to look at the whole chain of cost of the hydrogen at point of use. And if you look at that, I think that the whole equation changes. It's not just the production side that is there. There is more aspects that we need to think about. And so if there are more people from the panel that would like to comment on this.
Well, if you may.
Yeah, go ahead, Nihal.
Okay, thank you all. You have mentioned you have mixed a lot of topics at the same time, starting with answering Mr. Mouloud's question, or speaking about the approach to the development of green hydrogen in Algeria. And the comparison to Germany, well, in fact, I think that every single new technology in a country have to face a lot of challenges. So as you have already seen, that the 1,000 megawatt implementation for this year should be the first experience of Algeria to develop such a capacity, an installed capacity of renewables. That's the first question. For the second one, talking about the electrification of the system, we have also to think about the approach, the purpose of electrification, despite talking about the decarbonization or everything related to environment. Since we are talking about job creation, about making opportunities, making the international investment, creating even opportunities for local stakeholders, I think that we have also to define the purpose. Since we have, I think that the Algerian market had a wide of opportunities to develop a lot of sector, and especially as an example, the electrification of the transport sector, which may be useful to use the hydrogen produced, not only thinking about the export, also for the storage, as I have already mentioned. And for among the challenges, despite the financial challenges, as Mr. Bakri have mentioned, and also Derwish talking about the water, knowing that the North African country have a problem with water scarcity. I think that are the problems that we have think first before, and also with the purpose before getting deeper into this topic. Because since green hydrogen is the trend for the energy transition, but we have to be more logical to think about the objective of developing green hydrogen and not other technology. Maybe in the short or the medium or in the long term. So that's my comment on the global question and discussion.
Thank you, Nihal. Anyone else from the panel would like to say something here?
And I think most of has been said, but we can compare this with many other technologies that are in an innovation stage, like we have seen the PV, photovoltaic, the whole world. 10 years ago, like if you remember the discussion 10 years ago about photovoltaic, it was very expensive and it needed a lot of subsidy and so on and so forth. And people could not imagine 10 years ago that today the cost of 1 kilowatt hour produced by photovoltaic in some parts of the desert is below $1 per kilowatt hour. And the same will happen for the production of hydrogen. What we cannot imagine today, we can make any statements today, but it's about the future, so you cannot lie about the future. The most important thing is the willingness and the openness to the developments in the market. If there is pressure, if there is willingness to lower emissions, if there is no willingness to lower emissions, you should not start with hydrogen. Why should you? But if there is a willingness to solve the emission problem and the climate problem, then hydrogen is in all ways an important and pivotal element. And then if you start being involved in this market, in this development, then you will every day be surprised what the markets are bringing, like new innovations, like in the United States or in China or wherever. And why not in Algeria? Why shouldn't there not be new innovations and very smart solutions from the deserts in Algeria? I think you have a fantastic history on natural gas. Yeah? Working with the Dutch people in the 60s already. And so why not doing this? Be part of this market and then be surprised.
Thank you, Paul. Maybe commenting on the messages I'm getting here. I think one of the messages is about time span and and the fact that green hydrogen is something that people believe in, mainly because of zero emission, and that maybe right now the cost burden would be probably big, but you need a political will to invest in it now and bank on the fact that the cost will definitely be driven down by technology, and the fact that also the present price of making hydrogen is not really, might be prohibitive right now, but again, this is kind of the same point as before. But there is one thing that people tend to do, which is people invest on potential, and anything that that has the backing of the political will, legislation, and money will get there. If you have these three ingredients, you will get there. But if one of them fails, then yeah, things are going to be tougher. Okay. So with these comments, I think I will go to our next person who's waiting to comment here. May I invite Mr. Mohammed Badroni to speak? Mohammed?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Mohammed Badroni, Algerian, installé ici à San Diego, Cali. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm going to speak in English.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Mohammed Badroni, I am a consultant in entrepreneurship based in San Diego, California. But I started my working life long time ago at Sonatrach, working in the LNG project. So long history. I don't want to go that. A couple of I just want to echo the point of view that was developed here by Mouloud and Mostfa, and like the challenges that Algeria has if really hydrogen will be a focus, like from mobilizing financial resources to acquiring the technology. And in my mind, it should be considered in the mix, that may be long-term, my personal point of view. I think Algeria right now has challenges, more patient problems, and solar, I think, is the solution. And solar is really comparing to the investments that we might, the country might deploy in comparing to hydrogen is really not a lot of resources. And just a couple of ideas, like I live in California, and California mandated 2 years ago that all new buildings should be equipped with solar. So that's led, prior to that date for 2020, to huge development in solar energy, and which helped really to reduce the carbon emission drastically. So this is a simple solution that the government can enact. In addition to that, tax reduction that help homeowner really install solar. So these are simple solutions that really can help reduce carbon, develop solar energy that will create jobs, because I think the challenge of Algeria is creating jobs, and solar can really be a factor in that. So maybe we can dream about hydrogen in the future, but in my mind, it's not really for today or tomorrow.
Thank you, Mohammed.
May I say something? Yeah, I respect what you've said, Mr. Badroni. That's fine, and we're okay with that.
Yes.
But if we all think like this, what we heard in those presentations and the efforts have been made in order to make this green hydrogen, we're probably saying, like, put it behind us and we're done. But I don't think that's a good idea. Yes, I would agree with you. We'll have to look at every single aspect when we think about just the environment. But here we are talking about green hydrogen. How do we get this feedstock, this essential element in what we can use in the progress of our economies, which is very important, and how do we reduce emission by using it? And I agree with you, that's fine. Photovoltaic panels everywhere, that's great. But that's fine, but that's not enough. And as far as the technology is concerned, you know, the actualizers are, yes, expensive, you know, expensive and expensive to run. That's fine. But as Mr. Mustafa said, you know, economy of scale is going to help. The interest of every country is going to help. And once we have more and more and more, we will see it. And Frank and Paul had said that. There are a lot of other technologies and ideas that people thought they were prohibitive, and they became real. And now we are using them in a very cost-effective way. So we cannot shut down our brains. We have to keep going and thinking about this. And yeah, I understand Algeria is not, you know, in the best place to develop all this, but it's going to be a major contributor as well. So I just want to make sure that, you know, let's not run away from this.
Yeah, I think well said. Yeah.
I just add a few things if you don't mind.
It has to be quick, Mohammed.
Yes,
there
yes,
are people waiting as well.
Believe me, I am for technology. I love technology. And as a matter of fact, I am one of the founding member of a new association we created here. And I hope Hakim will join us, the Algerian American Association for Science, Technology and Entrepreneurship. Hakim, you are welcome to come, and we can work long term on this hydrogen problem in the future. But we have some basic needs that need to address for the country right now. And you know, slowly we come up to the you. I know that you are involved in that technology. It's dear to you, and I'm good to have somebody to defend the technology. But however, we need to be realistic also.
I think what I'm going to say is probably quote Churchill when he said once, you have to make certain decisions at a certain time. Otherwise, history will just come up with its own verdict. Too late. So let's be careful here. If I may get, before I let Mustafa comment on this, if I may, Zohair has been waiting for quite a while here. If I may ask Zohair Sheikhi to jump in and comment, please.
Hi, Khalid. Thanks for this opportunity. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for all the interventions and for the great presentations. I'm an expert in oil and gas industry. I will not be defending my industry today. I will try to defend a little bit the renewable sector and not the oil and gas industry. However, I think that I have few comments and I have two questions. And I will be playing the devil advocate in here. So sorry about that. I will be asking the nasty questions. So really sorry about that. So first, let's
you have an echo, Zohair. We can. It's difficult to hear you.
Do you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah, better.
Awesome. So as I said, I will try to play the devil advocate in here and ask the nasty questions. Sorry about that.
Okay.
From the beginning. So from the Algerian perspective, I heard all what has been said so far, and I'm wondering, and I fully agree with you, Khalid, when you said we should not be too late in going to those new technologies. But is it in the case of Algeria is a little bit particular, and the case of the African countries or the third world countries is a little bit particular. Why? Because it's totally different than the developed countries, the Western countries. Are we today with the green hydrogen is a must or is a nice to have? We didn't yet develop our PV sector in Algeria. We are so far late in this sector, while we can reduce by a lot, by tons and tons, our emissions. Today in the oil industry, we do flaring. Flaring causes a lot of emissions, CO2 emissions, and we can reduce it by very known technologies and very cheap technology. The PV technology, I join Mohammed in this approach. I join him fully. It's a cheap technology. We know this technology. Why not to develop this technology in Algeria first? The thing is, if we want to go to the green hydrogen, as one of your intervenants was saying, is that we need a surplus of production of clean energy, a huge surplus. While today we lack of green energy in Algeria, we don't have. It's clear we don't have. There is a tender that is going to be published probably, or has been published for 1,000 megawatts. It's ridiculous. It's something ridiculous. Compared to the size of Algeria, compared to the potential of the PV industry that can be implemented in Algeria. So it's totally, again, is it, we need to have it? Is it a must, or is it a nice to have? For the time being, my humble opinion, I do believe that it's nice to have. We could go and study, do researches at the universities level, do some association with other universities around the world, with other companies, yes. But in my humble opinion, it's not a must. The other thing, do not forget that up to today, Europe, which is Europe and USA, which are the leading continents and countries in the world in the development of those new technologies, they are still using a lot of fossil fuels. Nord Stream 2, bringing 110 billion of cubic meter of gas from Russia, will go to Germany and will go to Denmark and will go to France for 30 years of contract. And this will not stop tomorrow. Saudi Arabia, USA, with the shale gas and the shale oil, this will not stop tomorrow. So I'm afraid that what we are going to in the future, in the 15, 20, 30 years, and this is one of my questions, is that we are going to create, in the oil industry, we have the giants or the mega companies, which are Exxon, Shell, etc., etc. And I'm afraid that with this technology, we will be creating the same thing, because the poor countries, the countries that cannot deal or invest enough in this technology, they will be under the supremacy of those big companies for this kind of technologies and this kind of energy. And this is one of the worst. Do you think that there will be big companies, major companies working in this field that will be leading and having, let's say, 80–90% of the share in this industry, while all the other countries, they will be left behind? So that's a real question for me. So again, this is one of the questions. The second question is that why after today the developed countries still using, why, in Germany today in 2021, 56% of the electricity produced in Germany is from renewable. However, up to today in Germany, we're still signing contracts for 30, 40, 50 years on fossil fuels. So is there any contradiction in there? That's my second question. Thanks a lot, Khalid, and thanks for all the others.
Thank you, Zohair. It certainly makes everyone think. My little comment before I let Mustafa react to this, because he raised his hand, is that I really think the thing that will speed up the adoption of renewables and all green energy is not going to be market dynamics or demand and offer, but it will be legislation. In my opinion, it's not going to be something else. So for example, in a few years, if legislation is where it's expected to be, then you can ask for that oil or that gas, and you need it, but you can't use it because legislation prevents you from doing so. Just a small comment. Over to you, Mustafa.
Yes, just what Zohair should have added in his question is the timing, because the time horizon factor is extremely important. And I don't want to give the wrong impression that I forget hydrogen. No, I mean, in the case of Algeria, usually I talk about the MENA region, but more specifically about Algeria, Algeria cannot afford to wait another 15 years to put back the issue, the story, or the topic of hydrogen. They should continue work, research work, strategic work should continue, must continue to take place in Algeria. It's just a question of strategy. How is this thing going to be developed? Because again, we're not talking about 2025, even 2030. We're talking about 2040 and beyond. And then the net zero emission is by 2050. So we have to keep that in mind. The resources, whether human resources or other resources that are mobilized right now to mobilize strategic priorities at the moment, and how the energy transition strategy is going to be developed. What are the priorities at the moment? I think that's very important. It's not a really exclusive thing. No, you have a bouquet when it comes to energy transition strategy. Bouquet, you have a portfolio of options that you have to take. And a lot of those MENA countries have a lot of other things to do. I mean, domestic energy pricing is a major issue, the elephant in the room, for example. So to go back to his question, there are other priorities, but you should not abandon the fact that, by 2014 and beyond, I mean, in the case of Algeria, depending on how upstream hydrocarbon development develop, Algeria could be a gas short country. So even I was talking initially about blue hydrogen, but I was not really referring to Algeria. Egypt also could find itself in the gas short situation. It's about long-term strategy. That is what is important. The stop and go policies that these countries have witnessed is not helping. There should be consistency in terms of policy, putting the seeds now and gradually think. What I'm afraid is when we mix the priorities, we mix unrealistic targets with what could really be implemented, we lose everything. That's my concern. Because some of the things are going to look so ambitious, so unrealistic that forget it. That's the concern. Thank you.
Thanks, Mustafa. Zohair, I hope that's a welcome comment from Mustafa. Yeah, next, I think Frank wants to say something. Go ahead, Frank, over to you.
Yes, thank you. I want to react to what Zohair said and Khaled, what you just mentioned. I mean, first of all, I think it's absolutely right to say that development of renewable energies for power generation is absolutely essential. And of course, if we're talking about green hydrogen, we're talking about a surplus. So in the beginning, of course, it looks as a big contradiction. But as Mustafa just mentioned, I mean, you have two different time sets. When it comes to building up the renewable energies as a source for electricity, you're talking about the here and now. I mean, if finally the new ministry will be able, together with this new company by Sonatrach and Sonatrach, really to put into place what has been planned. So to install 1,000 megawatt a year till the 2035. This would be a considerable progress for Algeria. So this is one thing. If we're talking about green hydrogen, what we're talking about, first of all, about a commitment. Second, about a pilot industry, a pilot plant, that might take another 2 or 3 years after the decision has been taken. And it's not the case that it's just about, let's say, another 15 million of subsidy by some international donor, but you have this process where you will be able to sell this for a certain period for competitive prices, is subsidized by in this case German governments, but I'm sure others will be in this too. So I mean, as Khaled, as you just mentioned, I mean, it's all about legislation, and I mean, there's so much talk about market, but what we have here is a full-blown industrial policies that has been put into place for now 15 years after the last crisis but one, and where billions and billions of euros are put into industrial policies, and you could be part of the party or you avoid this. I mean, let's get back to the history of Algeria. I mean, I read a book about how Sonatrach started, and it was a real, I mean, that was an adventure. And then there came this nationalization in 1971. This wasn't easy going. So, I mean, in the end, you have to be realistic. That's for sure. And yes, Algeria would commit a big mistake if it would indebt itself. But certainly, if you just start by saying it's not possible anyway, then you have the question: what when in 20 or 30 years? First of all, the resource, sooner or later, Algeria will run out of fossil fuels. But second, there will be legislation that will increasingly put on the prices for gas export, Russian included. So they are talking about this on European level, not on German level, but on European level, to have these prices, whatever you think of it. And I have my personal questions about all these instruments, but this will certainly be a matter of fact. So I think, yes, there is this contradiction having Nord Stream 2 but up to now, as far as I know, there are not any contracts yet fixed. But of course, this is a contradiction to developing renewable energies. But there's a big controversy in Germany about it anyway, also right through the society. So I think, my opinion, it would be good if Algeria joins the party, because Algeria is a country that has really the development, really the potential to develop this kind of industry, I think.
Thank you, Frank. I'm looking at the time here, and if people are interested in continuing, we'll continue for a bit. And people who want to drop off, please feel free. But it seems that we didn't cover everything. There are a few more things that we would like to just touch upon, if it's okay. One point that I would like to kind of maybe ask the panel to comment about is we talked about a number of things. Talked about maybe why hydrogen, the drivers. We didn't quite talk about some of the applications we probably can go into. What are the priority applications that we should look into? The technologies we touched upon. Now, there is one thing that is probably not exactly relevant right now, but do we see in the future the input from ICT, especially telecoms and computing and artificial intelligence, to help with redistributing automatically and in an optimal way the energy produced, so that there's no downtime. There's you can share a bit like what you have. Think of it like data that you have on your phone. You don't need it, you can share it, and so on and so forth. There is an IoT, Internet of Things. Why wouldn't there be an Internet of energy? Just throwing ideas at my friends here. See what you guys think. Anyone wants to comment?
If no one says anything, I will, of course, comment. You asked, first of all, the why hydrogen. I think we covered this why hydrogen more or less, right?
Yeah.
And then you asked about the applications. You say, well, I would say the applications, that is simply the demand side of the market. And if we talk about hydrogen, we talk the whole evening about the supply side, how to produce it, how much green or whatever color and what cost. But we have not talked about the demand side. And there is some local, like Hakim talked about, there is already for many years, more than 100 years, a sort of small, very small demand side. And this demand side will grow. And it will only grow due to the emission restrictions or emission conditions, emission price, and so on. Otherwise, it would not grow. Would not really be a reason. So but we see in all kinds of studies, there are tons of studies on the demand side, and the first one to apply for this is the steel and fertilizer and chemical industry. That was also mentioned by Nihal, and other industries, other applications depend on the situation and on subsidy money and that kind of thing. And then a very interesting point that you asked on the ICT or Internet of Things and so on. Well, actually, this is about markets. There are interconnected markets, as you know, in Europe and the United States and China and so on, where this Internet of Things is working. Demand and supply, and all kind of high-level technology, artificial intelligence. So actually, at the end of the day, it's like balancing supply and demand, and in the markets. And the most important thing actually is this factoring in the economic factor of emissions, because until now, like in Algeria and many other countries, this factor of emissions is not really part of the market yet. So you can still do flaring and then that kind of thing because it costs nothing, and no one cares. But there are more and more countries, like in Denmark, there would be no, you would have death penalty if you would do flaring in Denmark. And in the Netherlands, it's almost going that way. So, but like you say, this is legislation on the emission side, on the renewable energy side, on other side. And then the market takes care of the most intelligent solution if you have a good market with the dynamic prices, so that supply and demand is visible in dynamic prices, like spot markets, balancing markets, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Paul. If I may maybe ask someone like, I don't know, maybe Mustafa is close to this, close to the markets. I'm going to ask you to look at your crystal ball and tell us whether you foresee the birth of an OPEC or GECF for hydrogen in the future. No chance.
Well, then can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, you don't even have a gas OPEC. But to go back to what Paul was saying about the market will work at a certain stage. But right now, in the case of hydrogen, and I mean the non-gray hydrogen, just to make sure I'm clear, it's difficult to talk about market. The conditions are not there for a market. If you hear around what everybody's saying, everybody's asking for government support. Everybody's asking for subsidies.
Yeah,
so to start with, to be able to get, sorry?
That's the market. Yeah, if there is money from the government, it is part of the market. At the moment, there is money from somewhere. It flows into a market, right?
Yeah, I haven't finished actually, but if the government are not able to provide that money, because at the end of the day, what the market, basically the market, you need private sector investment. What the big banks are saying, they're not talking a lot. You don't hear them that much in hydrogen webinar and fora and things like that. But in the few occasions when they talk, they clearly say that they would need government support. They would need to see clearly how this thing. So in this case, the market would not work like in one of those commoditized energy products. So the market will get there, but not right now. We're still far from that stage. And hydrogen is not like natural gas. People tend to compare hydrogen with natural gas. It's not the same. It's not the same. Going back to the question of cartel of hydrogen producer, no, I don't think so. I mean, right now, I think the objective is to reach scale, and all efforts by different companies, different stakeholders will be to achieve that kind of scale, to make sure that green hydrogen at some stage become a reality. But I cannot see it's a very nascent industry.
Yeah, but if
Thank you.
Khaled, you allow me, because yeah, it may be a philosophical subject about the market, but if there is no one to pay for in the initial phase for this green energy, green hydrogen, then of course there will be no supply of green hydrogen. Well, no one will bid. That's a market. If Germany and the Netherlands, the European Union and United States have funding, then they initiate a market because they are a client. And that's the only, and it is starting up a market actually. But it has to do with the factor that emissions. If emissions have no price and no penalty, then there is no need for hydrogen. Why should you do it? Then you just emit, and you kill the earth and so on. If that's of no concern, why should we do this all? Yeah, we continue with lignite and everything that should not be there. So this is very fundamental.
Paul,
Okay.
I would like to come back to the MENA region. Yes, I mean, even in Europe, it would be struggle to finance all those some of the ambitious segment of the strategy. But in the MENA region, specifically in North Africa, I mean, you know better than anybody what the situation is. How are they going to get the financial capabilities to push forward those things? And that's why earlier I was saying, I'm afraid that my concern is that too many challenges, forget it. They abandon everything. That's why I said the first focus, the priorities for those North African countries is renewable energy. Make sure that the share of renewable energy increases. Make sure that all this kind of fossil fuel things that is happening, that's the first priority. That to me is the first priority. I'm just afraid that when we mix hydrogen, we lose everything. That's the concern.
I think we fully agree, Mustafa. We fully agree. The first is, of course, renewables, and Algeria is a little bit late. You see, we had this discussion in all the countries in the Middle East and North Africa, the same discussion. And you see that one country, for whatever reason, is faster than the other. And hydrogen, of course, is not a must. Yeah, you will not die if there is no hydrogen in the market. It is not a must, and it is also not a nice to have, but it is a part of an emerging market. And then it's a question like, can you afford, or are the clients like Germany and the European Commission? They throw in a lot of money, and people that are smart. And countries that are smart and getting a piece of that money. Yeah, so that's a market, by the way.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Just one last one. Khaled. Since Paul is the president of the II, and I would like to suggest something. Maybe it will be interesting to arrange or organize a webinar or whatever we want to call it, where you would invite financial stakeholders to tackle this issue of financing, because it's the most obscure part of all the hydrogen story at the moment. So I would encourage you to organize one of those things. I've attended one of your webinars, but it was a bit, it was different. So I'm strongly recommending a webinar on the financial aspect.
Yeah, we already did a small one, and we will do a large one in November on finance.
Thank you guys.
You as well. Yeah, we invite you all.
Thank you. If I may, at this point, I think we went way beyond the time allocated. What I'm going to say is a few points that I picked from this. One is prepare for the hydrogen I think the change is coming. Just prepare at least. We say electrification by renewables is a priority. Time horizon and what to do when is also very important. Global legislation is also important. Staying close to developments in technology is so important as well. And if I may ask each of the panelists, please, a last word for today. And I will start the order by Nihal.
The youngest.
The youngest, yes. Go ahead. You make us feel old, Nihal.
Yeah.
Go
At
ahead.
least the next time maybe we will talk about the equity between man and woman. I thought that Valeria this time. So thank you all for this first webinar. I think it will be the first. Maybe the next time, Khaled, we can make we can take every single aspect of the green hydrogen economy and make, as they mentioned, maybe for the financial, for legislation, and for the technology. I also want to insist on something that we have forgotten is the research and development stage. Sometimes we can say that the development, the obstacles and the challenges in Algeria have to start at least to talk about the knowledge transfer, especially for renewable energy, since it's a new, well, I'm not saying it's a new concept, but Algeria has missed a lot of opportunities to develop for the renewable energy. So I think that is the beginning with this webinar, and thank you all for your opinions, your suggestions. Thank you for the participants for their question, and see you next time, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Nihal. Thanks for your contribution. Najib, next, please. A last word.
We had to learn.
You're on mute still. There you go.
Okay, so I think that Algeria has an opportunity to green its economy because at least to introduce green hydrogen in ammonia production, since we are already producing grey ammonia in several plants here in Algeria, and it's easy to switch to green ammonia, and maybe why I think why we have to think to a pilot scale plant, and also to share knowledge with our neighborhood country, especially in the south of Europe and MENA region. And at least, last but not least, thank you for the invitation and the insightful information we get from this event. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Najib. Frank, as you said, you're going to go soon.
Yes. Just big thank you. It was a pleasure for me to be here. Maybe announcement. So our scoping study with a roadmap, as I said, will hopefully be finished at the end of July. So we certainly it will be certainly available after the summer break. So that will maybe give some more food for discussion. Hopefully we'll have some sort of conference. We'll talk about this with our Algerian partner ministry, the energy ministry and the energy transition ministry. So I hope to see you there then over the year, and I'm very, very hopeful to continue collaboration over the next few years. In Algiers.
Thank you very much, Frank. Thanks for your help. Thank you for your contribution. Over to you, Paul.
Yeah, well, Khaled, you asked us to bring our brain and to bring fun, so I hope that you could make.
Yeah, you did.
My advice is actually to discuss, to continue these good discussions on hydrogen and to act already on renewables.
Very clear message. Thank you. Hakim.
Yes. Yeah. It has been really a delight to do this. One thing is to tell the Algerian government, look, you've got this free gas and fossil fuels coming out of the kazoo, but you didn't really do well about it. I'm sorry, but you did not do well about it. Two, God had given you this solar energy. Like nobody has something like the Sahara. And what the hell are you doing? Do something about it. This free energy is coming to you. Now, I commend our German friends for, they don't have a lot of sun as Algeria. So look, let's work together. You've got something, I got something, let's work together. I think it's a wonderful thing to do. And I will support that. So, yes, please, let's, I think this club is good. We need to be a catalyst for our, these brains are wonderful. And I think if we get together, we are going to help those who are upfront with all this work. And as far as research and development that Ms. Nihal had indicated, I'm not sure what's happening exactly in Algeria, but I would encourage that to happen as well. You've got a great lab, which is Algeria on its own. So go for it. And you guys will have my support anytime.
Thank you so much, Hakim. Mustafa, over to you.
Well, I would say that we have to keep in mind that the MENA region is one of the regions which is going to suffer the most from climate change, and it is happening already, as some of you know who are resident in the MENA region. And I'll be very brief. I would say be realistic and be pragmatic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. One more of my privileges is to have the last word, as they say. I don't have that with my wife, though. So what I'm going to say is thank you to everyone, panelists, attendees, organizers. Thanks for everything. It was very useful. And as I said before, at the beginning, we're going to continue and do follow-up with a number of other webinars. Of course, as I mentioned as well, all suggestions welcome. So please go ahead and fire away anytime you want. One last word about the Algerians who attended this. Please, to everyone, a small appeal to spend at least a bit of your time to contribute. Algeria needs you all. That's me. Thank you very, very much.